Hello, and welcome to another wonderful episode of Submitted for Your Approval, the weekly card review show for Collective, the community-created card game. I am StrangerSide, your host and brand new, freshly minted community ambassador for Collective. I'll go into what my job is really quick before we start the show, but for now, let's introduce the rest of the cast. We have my faithful co-host, Grief, joining us today.
Howdy, folks.
And it seems unusually bright for that time of day in Germany.
Oh, well, we're reflecting some sunlight from the other side.
It's fake sunlight. Okay, I see. I see what we're doing. We're lying to the viewers now. And we're also joined today by Magneter. Say hi, Magneter.
Hello there.
He is the realm creator for Xandar. So I'm the community ambassador. I don't want to go into the whole mess of like why I have this job now, but I am kind of sort of like halfway between a player and a dev now. I am trying to communicate stuff from you guys up top and also manage all these new initiatives to get new players coming to the game, to make the Discord community more friendly, and also to get you guys some rewards for doing what you already want to do and continuing to play Collective. So a lot more details are going to be unfolding as time goes on. Just note on the Discord, we have some new roles, community ambassador. We got a new team of mods, including Grief down here is joined us as a mod. And hopefully we can make Collective a much more awesome game and help give the players the voice that they've always wanted, and to also help the developers to get new players and to keep those new players active and playing. So without further ado, let's go to the active cards, or the accepted submissions, starting with Tri-Kunai, which is a 3-drop mind action from Yamato with deal 1 damage 3 times. So not super complicated. This is the twin kunai toss, but with 3 kunai now. I know some people were complaining that now we have a card that just says proc Ash's passive. I think this is fine. I like what this does. Reasonably, I think every hero should have a reliable way to proc their passive at like 3 or 4 mana. I think that's about fair, unless we get, something that like levels up, like can get to level 3 in one of these kind of things, in which case maybe we need to keep that under check. As far as style goes, I like how, I've been seeing these corn designs that end up incidentally helping realms other than his own, but this time he's like, nah, we're going to put this in Yamato. This is where this goes. This is Tri-Kunai. Grief, what do you think of this design?
Oh, perfectly fine. Fits into any kind of Ash deck. Probably KM can also use it. But yeah, it's technically a fireball-esque card that can proc a passive, but you probably utilize it more in a controlled / mid-range variant for the extra reach. An aggro maybe, but you reliably proc are active in an aggressive deck already, so this is just more redundancy for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, you could probably use it more in the control and mid-range.
Yeah, of course, the fun corner case for this is probably KM Rage, and using this to get a bunch of Rage procs. But of course, we have a weird relationship with Rage units we've already talked about on the show before, where I'm dealing 3 damage to my own unit, I better make this count, right?
Yeah, as I said, KM would probably use it as a new fireball variant due to cost reduction.
Yeah. Magneter, what do you think of this?
I also think it's pretty fine. I'd want to say that it looks weak, but at the same time, I have no idea if anything could actually be done to make it any better. Yeah. So I think it's just fine, really.
Yeah, I think it's important we have tools like that. The Vrob Taxcollector is a 2-drop strength 1/3 goblin robot from Perotis with your opponent has -1 max mana. This is an anti-mana maiden, folks. So really quickly, the Vrob. So before we done a lot of stuff in Perotis, there were these robots called the Ruck, which were these different monsters that were running around as results of Malzy's schemes, whatever. And now they have a more human face. So the Vrob are goblin robots. So they look like goblins, but act like robots, and they work for Malzy. Artistically, this kind of continues the train that Hanoi had been doing with this. It's done digitally, but it has this really cool colored pencil like type scheme. which I think is super cute. I really enjoy it. It's interesting. The proportions here in the art are a little bit awkward, but that's fine. That's just annoying in his style. Magneto, what do you think of this?
Yeah, so definitely first of all, I'd have to say that the art is absolutely amazing, in my opinion at least.
Mhm.
And in terms of the actual design, I mean, it seems like I don't know what you'd actually use it for, because -1 max mana on a 1/3, I mean, it doesn't seem that great. It seems like it would be. I mean, you can kill it with a 2-mana action, which I guess isn't terrible.
Yeah,
It also isn't too great.
On 2, I think this is actually really good. I do agree with you conditionally. I think in later turns, the fact that this can get removed before it even has a chance to do anything means that this is really balanced. I am worried that on 2, this is a bit oppressive. And I think if you kind of think about what the board state looks like, it can be problematic. But again, depends on the use case, depends on when you draw it. And of course, we do have a lot of removal in this game now that can handle weird situations like this, including Deface got updated. So this is probably a good Deface target. Grief, what do you think?
To be honest, I don't think that it is both. It is neither in the too weak or too oppressive category. It's just right in the middle. It's fine if you play it off initiative on turn 2, because you can actually benefit from it from turn 3, because you don't really run the case of, oh yeah, I reduce the max mana of my opponent, but still they have unused mana that still exceeds their current, and it still exceeds their current maximum. So they could actually answer it, blah, blah, blah. To make a long story short, this is just a nice little hate where stacks-ish kind of unit, and we need a little bit more of them.
Yeah, definitely. I like
It
it.
would be funny to create a bunch of copies of it with something like that new wax plant copying card.
That would actually be funny.
And just completely remove your opponent's max mana.
Yeah,
that's so
basically my playstyle.
If you have like the dream setup would be one of these or 2 of these in hand in Art of Rep. Turn 2, one of these comes down. Turn 3, Art of Rep comes down. They get the one in play and the one in hand. Turn 4, play the 2 you now have in hand, and then turn 5 they're sitting on 1 mana. Yeah, unless they can find a way to remove one of them. They have 1 mana on turn 5. That's the high roll scenario. Oh, is Grief not thinking about the high roll scenario? He's blinking at me weird.
Let's just move on.
Okay. Urge to okay. That's all we have. Oh no, Acrobat. Forgot Acrobat. Going back for Acrobat. I just really like Space's art. Yeah, see, nothing like this art. This weird artist we've never heard. No, just kidding. The Acrobat is a 3-drop mine 2/4 Nightmare Construct from Walnut. With when a card enters your deck for the first time in a turn, draw a card. So things this does that are cute. If you are the kind of person who likes to run 3 of Door to Elsewhere, this can get you. This makes Door to Elsewhere no longer have that annoying drawback where it -1s you. And it also gives you a chance to draw back some of the stuff you already had. If we see other stuff, Scholar's Disc, if it sees more play, you can turn it into a draw spell. There's a lot of potential good, I think, can come of this. And I would like to see more synergy. I know that Magneto, you've been looking for more synergy along these lines with stuff entering deck or getting shuffled into deck. So that could be fun. I'm guessing that's why you picked this card. Grace, what do you think of it?
First of all, in terms of the art, I think it's at least 2 years old.
Yeah,
it's finally made it
I'm glad it
game.
finally got in the game though. I think it's pretty.
The next part of it is this will probably do way more in Legacy, considering the kind of card pool that we have access to. Considering we have stuff like what's it called? Orchestra, which shuffles itself back at the end of the turn. which can also, when it is milled, forces people to shuffle their cards from their hand back, which allows you to go which allows you to go 0 on it, while your opponent goes -1, and so on and so forth. This is a very interesting tool for reshuffle shenanigans, and I love what people brew up with it.
I do have a minor complaint flavor-wise now that I'm looking at it, and the fact that this does not have either flying or leap makes me sad. Because like
the thing is, it's not flying, not really leaping, it's technically falling.
Semantics. Magneter, what do you think of this?
Yeah, similar to what Griff said. I really like how, because I didn't really think before that the card would actually be useful at all for Nightmares, but then I actually
looked at Nightmares
played more
and
so
Legacy
a self-mill deck, and the Orchestra really does. Just Orchestra alone makes it worth it, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And even outside of that, I think it can be useful for even in standard really, because we have Door to Elsewhere, we have like I said, Scholar's Disc, and we also have the Painted Blaster. There's also the other half of it, but no one cares about that one. So I think it's really cool in that way. How it helps possibly create a new archetype, but also helping an existing one.
Cute little Legacy interaction. We have Alley Informant in Legacy, which says you draw from your opponent's deck. That's basically a flavor first card text. What the card actually does is, the card you draw is put back on top of your deck. You exile the opponent's topmost card and create a copy of it in your hand. The very important part about it is to put the card back on top of your deck.
Yeah.
Meaning the card enters your deck again, which says that you are allowed to draw it again, which then would actually draw another card from your opponent's deck, because the card will be put back into your deck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this can also be useful for just enemy mill and not just self mill then.
Basically.
Yeah. Okay, so let's start with the active submissions still on the subreddit. Still have a chance of getting into the game. Urge to Collect is a 1-drop spirit action from Nowhere in Particular with give a unit can't block, and when it attacks, create a coin. This was done for the competition. First of all, I wanted to say the art here, which I guess is a Go-Chris art, is really stellar. I like these kobolds they're doing. They're really cute, and they have potential to do neat stuff, but just the perspective and the style on it is just really adorable. So kobolds play around with this can't block space and are trying to work toward, I think they want to work toward a Bedlam deck, which is a really old card from Magic. Just says units everywhere have can't block. So whenever you have an effect like that on the field, it basically becomes all out aggro, and my numbers are bigger than yours, and your numbers are going towards 0 faster, and you die. This does have the interesting thing of creating a double trouble scenario where you both give the unit can't block and you penalize it for attacking. And that is just really, really potentially very cool. Sort of I think there was another card we had that penalized attacking like this, Curiosity or something like that.
Could be Curiosity. You mean the Mind card?
Yeah, the Mind card that whenever they attack, you draw.
Or was it Divination? Something like that.
Isn't
yeah,
it,
something like that. But anyways, this is real cute.
Predictable?
I like this.
Predictable, yeah.
Predictability or something, yeah.
Mm.
Grief, what do you think of this?
It's cute. The thing is, you don't really have to always put it on your opponent's unit. You could actually put it on your own, considering that you have a unit that don't really cares to block anyways, and it probably even has a beneficial build too. So just attacking with it until it dies is also kind of interesting. Overall, it's a clean little design and probably a nice addition to standard.
Mhm.
Don't really see a good use of it in Legacy, but that remains to be seen. Maybe I stand corrected on that.
Yeah. I just want to see these kobolds get fleshed out to the point where they're full archetype.
Yeah, they're pretty cute.
Yeah. Mag, what do you think?
I originally thought that the card is weak because I misinterpreted it as the owner creating a coin.
Nope.
But yeah, that makes it a bit better. Although even then, I don't think it's that great, personally, because candy block on its own isn't really. I don't think it's that sort of harsh of a thing to put on an enemy unit. And I mean, sure, when it attacks, you get a coin. That's which is all right, but it's not that great a thing either.
Well, but the thing is, the unit's effectively bricked at that point, right? So if you choose to attack with it, you're giving your opponent an advantage. So if you're not willing to give them that advantage, the unit's bricked at that point.
I mean, yeah.
So that means you are going to reliably get coins off of that, or you just got a removal off of this, which is even better.
Technically, you can slap it on a defensive unit that usually does not attack, doesn't really have an active, and basically works on a passive. Basically, it works on a passive level. Considering, okay, you could also say there's a specific place that they, that they cannot really use for attacks, but has a huge HP value. Slap this on it, sure, you don't get a card, you don't get a coin out of it, but still you got rid of a blocker.
Yeah. So overall, I think really good effort on this. Really cute. Moonlight is a 3-drop spirit action from nowhere in particular. With your opponent mills 3, and each time they mill a unit this way, draw a card. So getting mill back into the game. There's not a lot of mill in standard right now, or it's in a really weird spot, and mill is always really just tricky to design. But what does this offer you? So this offers you a little bit of a mill 3, which is way overcosted at 3, but we get an upside. Each time they mill a unit this way, you get to draw. I think there are 2 real problems with this. First of all, I almost feel like it could probably be cheaper without being pushed. But of course, this does have the potential to be a draw 3. But even then, I don't think it's that much of a deal. I could be wrong on that. The other thing is there are a lot of Grave Source decks that are still floating around, especially in Legacy, but I think, is Standard still doing any Grave Source shenanigans?
No idea, you're asking the wrong person.
Yeah, Empty's
not
not here
much,
today.
I don't think.
What?
I don't think to a large extent at least.
Okay, so we don't have a lot of Grave Source shenanigans going on, except I guess Trash. Trash cares about milling stuff and using their graveyard as a resource. So except for Trash, I don't think you're getting a really bad deal out of that. But then again, like, so Trash is a double whammy because they're running all the trash equipment, including like if Rebar Sword gets in this week. They want stuff in the graveyard and its actions, so they get double bid against that. So I think it's about not as matchup dependent as tech cards go, but it is pretty matchup dependent. And it also just doesn't strike me as that appealing at this cost. But I could be wrong. Magneto, what do you think?
Well, I mean, this card just seems very weak. Like, because you know, we have mill 4, your opponent mills 4 with rebound at 2 cost. This only mills 3, which at that point, on its own, I would argue if it's even worth 1 mana. And the draw and the drawing of the cards, I mean, sure, you can get up to 3 draw with that, which I mean, it's all right for 3 cost, but I don't think you're going to get 3 cards out of it that often or that reliably.
We have a lot of board-based decks floating around, don't we? Currently, Dunewalkers.
I mean, yeah, but But even something like Dunewalker still use quite a bit of actions.
Mm.
So I'd argue that more often you're probably going to get about 2 on average, I'd say. And at that point, the card is
Your
pretty
opponent mills
weak.
3, draw 2 is really, really good.
Is it?
I think so.
You have to consider that technically drawing 2 cards is costed between 2.5 and 3 mana.
So you got to ask yourself what the average scenario is, but it is also fairly matchup dependent, especially with Gravesore stuff around. So in Legacy, I think this is poison. But Grief, what do you think?
In Legacy, this is probably not really that much playable, not because of the matchups, but because it's a very large tempo loss for 3 mana. For Standard, this is probably fine and maybe on the 2 balanced spectrum of things, because as I said, card draw in Collective is for 1 card about 1 mana. For 2 cards, it's between 2.5 to 3 mana. And that's basically the balanced spectrum of cards, of card draw. In this case, because it's so variable, and especially with Collective Standard, very meta dependent on how well you actually hit the target. In some matchups, if you hit stuff like hard control, non-board based decks, okay, you pay 3 mana to mill them for 3. That's it.
Yeah. I agree with you about the whole, like, you got to ask yourself what part of this you're excited about, and mill 3 is not probably what you're doing with this card. And drawing, yeah, but does require a little bit of luck.
Technically, this card should either cost 2 or mill 4.
Yeah, I definitely think I agree with that assessment entirely.
Mill 4 would probably be better.
Okay. So the Green Evolution, or Stranger's Thesis on why y'all need to read cards. No. Green Evolution is a 2-drop neutral action from nowhere in particular, because green men aren't from anywhere in particular. With banish an ally, and it gains green man's name and abilities and return it to play. Come on, guys. This is cute. This is fun. I can use this to heal a unit to full and then give it like +8/+8 in a green man deck. I can make a double scoop green man that has 2 of green man's entrances. I don't know. I think this is cute. I understand why some people probably don't like this. Maybe we're just doing the same old archetype over and over again. But can I use this in other decks? Well, sure. This is a flicker. Flicker in neutral that at least gets me +1. That in a deck that's just running this entrance-based unit could get me really big stat buffs. I could use this to reset something. I could use this for a lot of stuff. I feel this is really cute and versatile. Grief, what do you think?
It's a cute card. Okay, I have to probably cat's out of the bag. I don't really care too much about the green man archetype. It just fits right in there. You could probably build a green man-ish blink archetype, which is mind adjacent, where this probably fits into right perfectly, where you have units that want to enter / leave the field, and if they just can benefit from the buffs of Grand Green Man above, as you already mentioned, this is just more upside. Besides that, it's another Green Man card. Technically, in all honesty, I could have seen this at 1 mana.
Yeah, I think that even that probably could have worked. But yeah, like
this is Vanishing Act for Green Man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that could have worked. Maybe a neutral blank, since it does give you back some stuff, but you have to be running specific cards to take advantage of it. I've been currently, that was actually a build I made for my cousin, was we did Green Man Trash. And it's actually a really, really fun deck to pilot in single player, is doing Green Man, and they're doing like a recursion reanimator stuff with some of the legacy kit. And it was not actually even a lot of the legacy kit. Like, it just has a couple holes that need filled. Okay. And personally, I think this would be a fun addition to it. Particularly for resetting your green trenchcoat trio, because then they gain an additional +3. because their second entrance will trigger after their first, and yeah.
By the way, did you already get your cousin addicted to honeypot? By the way, kids at home, don't do honeypot.
Tell them about honeypot before it's too late. That actually might legit work in the build. Peter, what do you think?
I mean, I don't know really, because to some extent I wanted to say that it's strong with the fact that it can effectively double the Greenman buff, but at the same time, I don't know how good Greenmen are or even could be at the moment.
So the tricky part with the Greenman buff is you got to figure out one way to get overrun. And I'm personally running redundancy on that. But the thing you can do with this kind of thing is if you have one unit that just has overrun, you can make it a Greenman and solve the problem the other way, right?
I suppose. So I don't know, it's an interesting card design-wise, I think.
Yeah. I think at least for the Jank SP build, this is what it needs.
Yeah. I'm not sure how to evaluate it balance-wise. It's kind of tricky in that way.
Now, pretending like I don't play favorites, where I guess I totally do, we have Dirty Bandaid, which is a 3-drop neutral trash equipment from nowhere in particular. With give a unit when you play a card that targets this, get ward, and +2 HP. So this is a alternative take on Tectonic Plate Mail, where instead of getting recurring buffs, you get recurring ward. And of course, this has the weird problem of, well, normally with aggro, you want to pile a bunch of buffs on a unit, and this just keeps it around for longer. This does, however, give you the potential to survive any storm if you can just find cheap enough equipment. So in a deck that's churning out a bunch of cheap stuff, I think this is really potentially cool. It might be a little underpowered. I know a lot of people were not taking a liking to this. It was sitting at like 1 on the subreddit, which that one vote was mine. So I can probably see more so than some of the other cards that weren't doing so great what the turnoff is, but I guess I'd like that clarified. Magneto, what do you think?
I mean, first of all, art-wise, the art is well done. It's not that Space Turtle did a bad job at making it, but I don't like looking at it. I think that's the intention, but I really don't like looking at it. Now, but the card itself, I think it's kind of weak, because to be honest, usually you don't really need to give the unit ward more than one time, I think.
Well, with the essence shifter, meta and the people who are stacking, oh sure, I get 2 copies of every kill spell. This I think is needed. I think we need something like this.
but you get 2 copies of every killed spell, but you do still spend twice the amount of mana on it if you want to play it 2 times.
And I guess this also does give you 2 HP. So this gets you out of range of certain unit-based burn, but I think the recurring ward is not I don't think that's the problem with this card. I don't think this card has no problems. I think it clearly has some problems, but I don't think that's the problem with this personally.
I'm also saying that it's not good enough at the cost it has, I think. And even then you do need to target with quite a lot of things.
I think it's a bit overpriced.
You have to keep targeting it, which isn't that difficult, I suppose. There are some cards which can generate a lot of equipment, say Battlesmith usually can generate quite a bit. But for standard, it's probably fine, I suppose.
Yeah.
Because we don't really have anything that gives wards. For Legacy, I think you could probably still just use Warding Wool, to be honest.
Yeah. I think this is interesting because of the what do you call it? The whole thing about this versus Rebar Sword, where Rebar Sword has art is depicting something that's garbage and it looks gross, but it looks so good even though it's gross that it like loops back around and just becomes its own good thing. Versus like this that just looks gross. And it does a good job of looking gross, but which is subjective. But like Rebar Sword is like a sexy girl.
Okay. Okay. I ain't kink shaming here, but let's move on. By the way, my only thing that I want to say about the card, probably 2 mana. Because
Yeah,
at 3 it's kind of on the edge of usability, considering that you also have to target the card, because does this actually count itself for
I
game
don't think
order?
it does. The way it's worded, it doesn't seem like it does. So you still have to hit it with something else, and then that's a perfect opportunity for you to get 2-1. If it had fast, that would almost make up for it. If it had +2/+2 instead of 2 HP, also might have been neat, or +1 to +2.
Ooh, at that point, it's probably better attack edge. Attack mail, I mean.
Yeah. Well, Tech Mail gives you stacking buffs, so I don't know.
Yeah, because
Just
with a +2/+2 at that point.
yeah,
Yeah,
so
okay.
fast or 2 cost, or even maybe both. I wouldn't begrudge it for doing both. Like, that's a good use of fast. Okay, so starter grease picks. The Dark Lord is a 9-drop strength, 8/8 animation with summon, do bonus damage for 1 turn. Okay, so reality itself. Hey, I haven't heard of you before. Welcome to the community. Go check out the Discord. As far as this card goes, you might want to stick around a little bit and see more of what the community is doing. Not that this might have good ideas behind it. It's just, so there's problems. Like, I don't know what this means. It's not clear enough. Notice a lot of our cards are very
To cut you short and clear this up, this was a shitpost.
okay.
But why did I actually pick that card? Hi, I've been the dude that sent you the link for the Discord. Please show up on the Discord. We can help you out actually creating cards for the game. By the way, welcome to the community. Next up, this is more or less a hint at giving feedback instead of card feedback, because I think Bob already did a decent-ish enough job of actually breaking down why that card isn't that good of a design for now. On the other hand, when we see new folks, please just hand them over to the Discord. Like, yeah, sure, you can give them feedback on their card design, but it doesn't really do much if they don't really know that A, there's an actual game behind it, B, they have problems with the card creator, which they even admitted in their own comments in their subreddit. So yeah, send them our way so we can actually do stuff or workshop their ideas to actually be, well, functional.
Yeah, and I know there are plenty of players who don't actually block cards. I know for a lot of people who wanted to learn the blocking system, I would block their cards for them as an example for a while, and then they got a hang of it. I know there's a couple people who are really, really stubborn on the Discord and just refuse to learn blocking, and Magnetter has jumped in and blocked for one of those people, and they're a team. They work together and they both get credit on designs. So I think we're pretty much good here, unless Magneto, you had some quick comment for the new player.
I mean, I find it horrendous how you misrepresented its tribe and said it's an animation. It's obviously an animaton. And I don't understand how you could make such a horrible mistake.
I don't know how to pronounce a left parentheses.
Right. I made a mistake as well. It's just left parentheses animaton. Obviously.
No, but seriously, we can give you help. And just a word to the wise for everyone. Smallest rarity that fits. If this fits on a common, make it a common. I know this was maybe just, shitpost, but please, smallest rarity that fits. Always. I mean it. I want to help your cards get in. Library of Ashes is a 2-drop neutral action from nowhere in particular. With replace your deck with 2 copies of your hand, excluding copies of this card. I'm a big fan of copies. I am usually not a big fan of burning resources, but I think this one's super interesting. So Thetis did a big solid to the community, and any of you who are used to using the free art sheet, he went and dumped like his entire back catalog of all these old arts and sketches he wasn't using, and just for us to use to make great cards. And I think this was one of them. Really enjoyed it. This reminds me of some of the most iconic black spells in Magic's history done through the lens of collective, right? This is reminiscent of, in certain ways, like ad nauseum almost, Doomsday.
This is so much Doomsday, and I love it for it.
Yeah, this is like Doomsday vibes.
It's so way weaker than Doomsday.
Yeah, it's weaker, but it definitely has that feel behind it, where it's like, I am going to go all in on this one particular thing. And I think, as far as cheesing it, obviously you can't get copies of this card. I don't think it's beyond still cheesing, though, because you can definitely pull some shenanigans with either Amnesia Mage or potentially Spectre of the Library, and still basically just cheese it. You can easily get your deck back up to 40 with this. I have no doubt in my mind. You just have to get clever with it. You do have to do some synergy, and of course that's a really long game type stuff. In the short game, this is like, I'm gonna go all in on one particular thing. Any card that cares about having copies of itself, so even Green Men, could potentially use this. I think this is super adorable. I want to see this get in. Some people think this is limiting design space, so like Gamble, caring about cards being banished. This lets you proc every single banish trigger you might have in your deck. And I do feel sorry for Acoustic, but I'd rather see this in the game. And I think it can be really, really fun. Magneto, what do you think?
I don't know. I think it feels kind of strong at the cost it's at. Because even with like,
you're wanting yourself to burn your library for permission to get extra copies of cards in a random order. How is that not
all that have to be in your hand?
That have to be already in your hand. You don't even get to pick the cards.
I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but it feels like you could
We're not saying it's power or not powerful. We're saying the cost is not the source of its power. The effect is,
I mean, maybe
it's not really a matter of adjusting costs. It's a matter,
because more so the cost. I don't think it's problematic in the way that you can use it early, because, well, you probably wouldn't like use it on turn 2 or whatever, because, well, at that point you definitely won't have a good hand yet.
Maybe in Legacy, if you have a death, or if you have a Death Wish.
Not even to my knowledge, you can pull off a combo on Legacy with turn 2 with this.
Yeah, but I feel like what's more so problematic is that on later turns it gives you a lot of decent amount of mana to actually organize your hand.
Yeah.
With, I don't know, things like just cards draw, or things like Scholar's Disc or whatever.
But of course, that's just burning. That's just spinning your wheels,
deck.
right?
Yeah.
At that point, you're just spinning your wheels.
I mean, yeah, but you can do that a lot of times. Because let's say on turn 5 you can.
Even if you're spinning wheels, you're still making 1. So
you have to advance your game plan with this card, Bangayer. You have to do something that is going to help you win. Fiddling around with your hand in your deck is not directly going to help you win. So you're losing a lot of tempo.
The way how, just to put into perspective, Magneto, how such a card usually, like Doomsday, is used. Doomsday actually allows you to pick 5 cards from your deck and then banish all the rest and just put these 5 cards
in any order
as your remaining deck to combo off. And this is to build basically so-called Doomsday piles, which at that point, okay, I know exactly what 5 combo pieces I have, how to utilize them, and you're dead on the next turn, or even this one. Library of Ashes does technically the same, but you have to have the resources that you want multiple copies of in your deck already in your hand to combo off with them. This is like trying to assemble stuff like the old Ronin combo, Switcher with King with the whole self-bouncing, trying to grab the Ronin off your deck with promotion, or even trying to
Yeah.
rebounce and it's like you're at that point you are trying to double or nothing. Sorry, Yu-Gi-Oh! Pun not intended. On what you are actually doing in this or next turn. The only real reason how this card could be strong is with, as Stranger said, banish effects from deck. But at that point, this is basically a better way to utilize them as well, because now we have a good enabler. We can actually have a shell built around it that can A, benefit from the banishing, and B, from the deck pile that you want to create at the end of the game.
One other potential cool use I see for this is going forward, if anyone is interested in making a very engaging, limited draft deck modification focused Sentinels campaign, this is a good go-to guy, right? So this is a good consistency tool that lets people just mess around. And it could be really, really fun in a small deck game. And in fact, this could actually let you sync up and do some deck building mid-game, which I know some developers, some players don't like, in really, really fun and creative ways. So this is going into my Sentinels campaign, whether it gets in or not. Because
I would actually play this on Sentinels in a burn-centric deck.
Yeah, in a burn-centric or anything where you already have, like, if you're doing the green man combos, or get a second copy of your Jorna. I mean, fun stuff. This is definitely something that would interest me in that mode.
I also do
Wait a
kind of.
second. Doesn't this also copy recruit and retire cards?
Yeah, so you could get your second copies of your rewards. And if you have elsewhere fields in your pool, or if it's still kicking around, you can sync this up with elsewhere fields to loop into a bunch of more Library of Ashes. So yeah, fun Sentinel shenanigans if this thing gets in, or if you get it off the subreddit.
Sorry, Magneto, I cut you short. What did you want to say?
I do kind of not like, because like I said, what acoustic and this I think said that can easily, I mean, instantly proc all the banish from deck cards, like that guy who shuffles Charles into your deck. I must say I don't really like the fact that it does it, and also the fact that it can practically, not completely, but almost empty your deck pretty easily. You could use this possibly for some Dreamer thing in Legacy.
Yeah, you're way off base on that.
Am I? I mean,
we have better ways to do that.
Dreamer already gets you so close to dying if you're not careful. Like, and it's a later tool anyway. By the time you're actually getting around to like playing Dreamer, you have better options. Better, safer options even probably. Okie dokie then, an Entropic Mage design. I always love talking about these. The Canyon River is a 2-drop neutral 0/3 place from nowhere in particular with can't attack. And when a player draws a card with less than 4 cards in hand, they draw another and mill 1. So extra card advantage and big rewards, potentially a lot of gas for. This is a place that might be good in aggro if you're careful. I mean, you still have to leverage stuff, but it can keep you from running out of gas pretty effectively. Or Grave Source. There's another great idea for this. Is it that viable? I'm not 100% sure. It's in sort of an awkward place. It is symmetrical, so I almost feel like this might be able to go to 1. But maybe that's too ambitious. And I mean, like, if there's a deck that's constantly running out of cards, like aggro, you don't want to kill the 1-drop spot. So I'm not sure. Grief, tell me each way in which that assessment was wrong. I feel like I was a little off base on some of those points.
Aggro, maybe not so. A lower curve mid-range deck, probably some kind of combo deck could utilize the extra card advantage, trying to keep up momentum in trying to go for 1-for-1 answers until you hit your combo. The problem is with the mill part, you could actually mill your own pieces. In that case, this is probably the best way to utilize stuff like trash equipment in standard, undead in legacy. Self discard allows you to also utilize this card in a pretty interesting manner, where you could try to set up your graveyard as a second hand and resource that you could pick cards over the course of the game, while also trying to maintain this a steady flow of, well, a slow and steady grindy game that may or may not actually backfire. That's the funniest thing, because it's symmetrical. So at that point, we don't really know how much benefit your opponent can actually get out of this, because it's also very matchup dependent.
Yeah, so like Spirit mid-range, I think is you're right. It's probably a little bit of a better home than this. It's too much of a tempo down to play in real aggro, but it does keep the gas flowing at least.
Interesting combination. Sorry, Binding Magician.
Yeah, or Finding Magician.
Hmm.
That could potentially be really cool. Magneto, what do you think of this?
I feel like maybe it could work in an aggro deck, to be honest. Maybe not as a free off, but I think that the draw it can give is good enough. Maybe if you actually got to a later turn and you didn't have that much to actually play from hand, maybe because your hand was empty. I didn't really like the fact that this is symmetrical.
Oh, I think that's what makes it really interesting.
Mm.
I don't know, because I don't think there is that much that can that you can use from the fact that the opponent also has the effect. So
symmetrical is what turns on all the fun stacks combos, Thought Suppressor, Binding Magician.
I mean, it depends on the fact, but those still depend on the fact that your opponent actually has less than 4 cards in hand, which you can probably do some things with that, I guess.
So you just run other stuff that punishes them for having big hand sizes. Combo stacks. Combo stacks.
But I don't know, it still feels to me like most of the time it would just be a disadvantage.
Yeah. I do think this should maybe go down to 1. Now that the more I look at it, the more I'm convinced. Especially because this is symmetric and mostly helpful, and this is just a 0-3. I think it could. And then, for the decks that are running really low curve, they can play this on 2 probably with another 1-drop. But maybe that's too ambitious. I don't know. That's just my thoughts on the design. Okie dokie then. The Deck of Insanity is a 1-drop neutral action from Hallucinogenica with mill your deck at the start of combat, return it from your graveyard. This is doing, anyone want to guess how this is doing on the sub right now? No, it's doing 0. This is peak Sporium Corium. It uses Sporium verbiage, but it is, interestingly enough, not a rare. It hurts my brain to think about. Everything I think of to do with it is either busted AF or a waste of time.
Probably more in the first category.
It's so cute. I want to vote for it anyway. So, Grief, tell me what I'm doing. Tell me why. Explain to me why this is a 0 for those viewers who don't know why this is a 0.
We are looking at a 1 mana cards enabler for any kind of busted as fuck shenanigans that you want to do with grave sourcing, instantly milling, whatever you want to do. No, this doesn't have Dreamer. This enables Dreamer combos, but not Dreamer as a win condition because of the pre-combat way it's called. But play this, rip the entire hand of your opponent into pieces, set up your graveyard for probably some bullshit that you can do with Undead, because you can get Wigmores, you can get brutes into your graveyard, which then bring themselves back end of at the beginning of combat. And there's the question, what triggers first? Does this have priority? Do your units have priority? Because the graveyard triggers from the bottommost to the topmost card in the in order. That's something that has to be cleared up. In all honesty, this is a jumbled mess of many different and enabling many different game-winning moves that could actually break the game entirely just by playing one copy of it on turn
Yeah,
one.
I agree with what you're saying. And honestly, my thoughts on that is, for a game without a comprehensive rule set, it's not good to have cards like this existing until we have a comp rules to know how this card works. Because like you said, stuff that would move it to other zones, are this supposed to go back? I don't know. I would hope it's blocked that way. But
it's not if the cards are moved.
Yeah.
If the cards are moved, they are from graveyard. They aren't supposed to return specific. I mean, I don't know. Maybe the wording isn't.
Yeah, return it from graveyard is.
Because I saw that. That was the discussion in Card Lab. Did it specifically return? I don't remember why, but I remember that it said that it returns from graveyard so that you can return it if it's banished. And you can technically actually proc the Dreamer's win condition with this. If you can if you use Laukill the Cage and you use it in Mari. Because
the thing is, why do you want to proc Dreamer in this kind of case if you can actually win on turn 2?
I mean, yeah, yeah,
because that's
definitely,
the case.
But it is possible to use this to proc Dreamer with just pretty much just piling onto the amount of issues this has.
Basically, the issue with this is it's not good unless it's busted.
And the thing is, it's totally busted. No, it is totally busted, because you can actually play this turn 1, get 3 copies of Jester onto the board, which then trigger 3 copies of Brood, which also can actually get you 3 copies of Wigmore, but you don't care about them anyways.
I mean, also Neon Phoenix, I think.
Neon Phoenix has a cost.
Yeah, right. So by what I mean by it isn't good unless it's broken is the people who understand why this is broken downvoted it. The people who don't understand why this is broken still downvoted it because they don't see the point, right? So, like, I'm sorry, Sporium. I love you. I like your designs. This is a little bit worrisome. This is not good. Okie dokie, man. This is the final section of the accepted submission, or the active submissions. This is Magneter's picks. Magneter. I always say it wrong, and then you tell me. Magnet guy. Magnesium. Lizathep Nightblade is a 4-drop spirit 1/6 undead Lizathep from Mirage with deadly, and summon banish 4 undead in your graveyard to destroy a unit, and slay, draw an undead. It still hurts me every time I say slay. So this is a interesting potential grave source tool. You could turn a bunch of little tiny undead things into a kill, potentially. I like it. It's interesting. It's really weird. I guess deadly makes it make sense, but it's really weird mid-rangey stat line to see on this thing. But, you know, that kind of thing is good for Spirit. Spirit's been trying to get more into that space, and I think this could help it out. Magneto, what do you think of this?
Well, yeah, that's... I really like the sort of concept of using the graveyard as a resource in terms of not just reviving things from there or whatever, which is what most most of the cards which use the graveyard do in collective, from what I know. Not all. There are a couple with similar effects, but there aren't a lot of them. And I think it's a really cool concept, and I really like that this actually explores it. I kind of don't like that you have to specifically banish undead. If it won't limit to undead, it probably would have to be a bigger number. But I feel like this undeads wouldn't really care about this that much, considering they usually more so want to.
I think it could have been units safely.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Because undeads usually want to move the units out of graveyard into play, I think, so.
Or I think it just could have been units, just I'm talking from a balance perspective. Like, I don't think it needs to be undead for any balance reasons. It's only there for flavor, and it's maybe a bit too restrictive.
To be honest, and then you're looking at probably a pretty easily accessible 4-mana killer dude.
You also got to remember that
Green,
most of
that
the
gives you
tokens that would be
problems.
good fodder for this vanish on hitting the graveyard anyway.
Nope, most
Not
tokens
really.
don't vanish.
But I mean, what
Okay.
tokens are you talking about then?
No, I mean, in general, if you're going with a unit round, any kind of token would feed into this.
Well,
Because
except for the ones that don't.
Well, I mean,
Yeah, but that's
like,
just a
ring the
handful. That's
bell.
just like
Yeah.
two token types, which are flames and specific undead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
3 unit types specifically created undead units that are either Lizathep tokens or from the Forgotten archetype, and most of them are rotated out.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, even if you really wanted to, you could just use it on regular units that possibly died earlier,
Exactly.
not even tokens.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it would need a bit higher number, maybe like 6 or whatever, if it was any units. But then also, and I feel like it could probably not that there was specifically undead.
Yeah.
For a similar reason, to be honest.
Grief, what do you think?
The card is completely fine. You guys are basically picking it apart and trying to make a completely different card out of it. Because at the end of the day, if you try to remove anything that has to be done that, we're not looking at the same card anymore.
Yeah, I can see your argument.
This makes
I guess.
totally sense. Is a balance enough removal effect, because it's a body that draws you a card when it kills a dude by removing 4 pretty non-essential pieces from your graveyard, while also being a body on the board that can just draw you more cards if it kills more stuff.
Yeah, it's a good signpost uncommon that tells me here's what I want to run with this, or ask you to build a deck out of it. Okay. Yeah, I think it's cute.
It's totally fine and pretty good card, especially for board-based removal or board-based control.
Yeah. So the Striking Revival is a 4-drop spirit action from nowhere in particular with permanently decrease the cost of cards in your graveyard by 1, then return a 4 cost or less unit from your graveyard to play. This is cute. Art is simple but functional. Oh, there's a little, yeah, it's maybe a little too dark. Now that I'm actually looking at it, I can see what it is, but I'd have to like lean into the screen. Weird. It doesn't have a lot of existing synergies beyond like the obvious stuff. Lesser raise dead, caring about cost. But of course, it's a reanimator spell, and we don't have a lot of those. So this lets you get something that's 5 or less at least, and then subsequent uses can get you even more. Grief, what do you think of this?
Not really 5 or less, considering that the cost increase comes first.
Yes.
Or 5 or less, yeah, the cost decrease. Sorry, I had a mind like that. You first of all thought it was a cost increase, which made it a little bit worse. But yeah, it's just a cutesy little reanimator effect. Probably played affinity with how's it called? Shifter. Any kind of unit that you have rebound on can be later on reused with this card. Even at 5, this would then have rebound as well. So you could just try to constantly decrease the cost of cards in your graveyard, which in some cases has actually benefit.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Since it synergizes with itself, seeing this in a shifter deck could be interesting, and actually an interesting counter to what people are normally doing with shifter, which is getting strapped down with removal. You can get strapped down with reanimator instead, and potentially get some cool stuff back. It plays in a space that I've always really particularly liked. I wish I could see more of what was going on with the art, but it's Excalibur. It's simple and serviceable. Magneto, what do you think of this?
I really like this design because it works on its own. Just as a return 5 cost or less units from graveyard, and later on even cheaper if you run and play multiple copies of it. And it does have, I think it has quite a decent amount of synergy, because besides just actually things like raise and lesser raise dead, even just cards which move cards from graveyard into hand, which there aren't an incredible amount of, but there are a few, would also like this. So overall, I think it's just a really cool card which can be used in multi.
Yeah, I think it does bring us closer to a real reanimator deck, not a cheese reanimator deck made out by your brutes and Vigmas, which is where I would like reanimator to be. So, and people not to be scared of it. The Skull Sentry is a 4-drop spirit 4/4 undead robot from Mortstall, Realm of the Dead Things. With summon, banish a unit in your graveyard. This gets that unit's keywords. This is an interesting take on a design from Mortstall. It challenges me to think in a very lateral way, very mid-rangey in a way of like, okay, but I'm using this as a second copy of something that's used primarily for its keywords. What do I want that thing to be? I almost feel like it would have been fair if it was just any graveyard, and that would actually make it potentially really interesting. But as is, I think it's challenging to try and figure out how to make it work. And I personally am not able to answer that challenge, which might be why it's sitting at 1. Grief, what do you think?
Slap edge on it, flying, whatever. It's probably decent. There's probably a decent enough target in the graveyard. Even deadly or duelist, if you can manage to get a kind of functional alien core together, which cares about granting stuff, keywords en masse, then this just fits right in, funny enough. It's not a bad unit per se. Its use case depends on the deck you're running.
Yeah, it does take a lot. It is very dependent on what's around it and what you're planning on using it for, but it's interesting trying to come up with a plan. Magneto, what do you think?
Once again, similarly, I really like the concept of using the graveyard as a resource in terms of banishing things from it to get some value in some different way. But this can just be used in probably things like Daylings, maybe, to actually, because they have some units with different keywords. Possibly in, I want to say in an aggressive deck, but it's probably too expensive. But if you could get Agile on it, it's also a pretty good keyword.
Yeah.
So overall, I think it's a really cool card. Balance-wise, it's also, I think, good because if it gets 2 keywords, then it's pretty much at the point where we value cards. Of course, it kind of depends on the keyword.
Yeah.
Because something like Exemplar isn't worth as much as something like Leap.
Yeah, I do think that it really comes down to what else you're running around it, and it's kind of hard. It's kind of a tough cookie to crack. I think this could be a good limited tool in Sentinels, because it gives you extra consistency for a lot of stuff. I think Plas is looking to remove the snake, so the deadly thing isn't really a thing, but being able to pull out extra copies of certain keywords like duelist or deadly, or even there's never anything in your graveyard that has rebound unless you milled it. So yeah, I think this could work really good, particularly with specters, but I still really do wish it was any graveyard. I think that would make it easier to solve and more helpful and limited.
The only good card that probably comes to mind that you want to pitch into your graveyard would be Performer in Legacy, which has flying and agile.
Mm-hmm.
So you could actually utilize. That's true. You could actually utilize it in any kind of Grave Souls deck, technically, that has some form of flying support in it, which could be the case.
Well, but just hear me out. Like in Sentinels, right? There are some existing problem fights that are like, oh, my guy, their guys have regenerate. I don't have easy access to that. I wish I could banish something from their graveyard to rip off to get a copy of regenerate. Or dealing with like the Daylings that have deadly duelist, or a lucky spot of agile. I think it could be a lot more versatile, at least in the limited case, if it was any graveyard. And I don't think that really breaks it in the other cases, because it's very matchup dependent, right? But it could be a great limited consistency tool if that change was made. Okay, and the final card, our shameless self-plug, no, I'm just kidding, is the Priest Memento, which is a 1-drop neutral 0/3 hearing cultist plays from Xandar with active refresh 1 mana. This is another take on mana ramp, but not quite mana ramp. This lets you refresh, which means you already had to have had the max mana, and can potentially let you do some really, really cool stuff. So here's what it can let you do. Playing this on 1, you can get a 2-drop and a 1-drop out on 2, which can advance your plans quite significantly. This could help decks I think of off the top of my head. This could potentially help really well. Dat might want to run it just because it's a 1-drop 0/3. That could potentially ramp him up a little bit. I could imagine Action Spam wanting to run this, maybe just to get that extra 1 mana for a little bit of extra poke. Other stuff probably exists and is there, but those are just the first couple use cases that come to mind. Magnetor, what do you think of this?
Yeah, I mean,
that art though,
like you said, it definitely it would probably be used in that. If we're supposed to pronounce his name, because it's just a low cost, pretty high HP unit, and with an active, which is also pretty useful, I would say. Also, you could probably use it for Perlmo, to more reliably have the 1 mana for the coin without actually using the coin. And so you can use the refresh to get the coin, and then use the coins to actually ramp to something bigger without actually having to save up mana, really. And like I said, I haven't really considered that myself, but something like Action Spam, maybe even like, maybe, I don't know if an aggressive deck would want it.
Just a little bit of reach here and there, an extra chance to poke something.
Yeah.
I like how you drew a whole background for this. Like, congrats.
Did I draw?
You at least drew a good chunk of a background, and I'm proud of you.
I mean, it's as much as I do normally for my Xander arts, to be
About
honest.
as much, yeah. For those of you who don't know, Magnetor does very minimalist background. Grief, what do you think of this?
I can't really think of use for it. Sorry.
Yeah.
That probably, and that's basically it. Because it's not ramp, it's just refresh. You have to utilize the mana already. It's neutral, so maybe there will be something that could be useful with it. It's just a weaker ramp, so nothing really comes to mind.
Yeah. I kind of see what you mean.
Egolessness if you ever want to run this on Legacy, but that's it. By the way, we talked a lot about neutral cards today.
Yeah. And it's actually doing okay at 6. So anyways, that is the end of the main stuff. I'm going to get this into a sensible view. So that was it. I think it was a pretty cool week. It was nice. By the way, Empty Folder will be back next week. He just had some school stuff. I have some school stuff I'm supposed to be working on, but not. So we'll see how that goes for the rest of my today. Thank you,
my
Grief.
school stuff done.
Yeah.
Uh,
Thank you, Grief, for joining us today. As always, so nice to have you on. And thank you. Oh,
no problem. Always nice to be here.
And thank you, Magnetter, for stepping in and filling in for Empty, basically.
Thank you also for actually having me.
Yeah. So, guys, we want to see more activity in Collective. We want to grow the user base. For those of you who don't know what's going on, check the Discord. For those of you who aren't on the Discord, why aren't you on the Discord? Get on the Discord. That's where it's happening. So, like, comment, and subscribe. Remind me why I'm doing this. Keep on playing Collective and keep on voting on cards. Bye.
See ya.